well aware of the issue around the absolute inaffordability of housing. It's affecting everything. It's, people, I mean, I don't know how many times I've had somebody call me and try to see if I knew of any housing that they could get into because the person they were renting from was selling their home, and almost all of them are off the Cape now. It is, pretty drastic. A number or local businesses cannot hire. Our Outer Cape Health had, when we checked in with them about a year ago, they were down by like 20 or 30 positions. There was, we have a really hard time hiring staff because people can't find a place to live. We've had chronic instability in some positions because there's nobody that can fill that position that lives locally, or there's only one or two people, and 5 or 6 towns are bidding against each other for those same people. The need is dire. We've heard that from everybody. So in terms of what we need housing for Wellfleet. So.
Okay, but when we, to me, this, as a planner, you're going down 2 roads. One road is, and I don't mean this to be conceited in nature as far as Wellfleet, but if we've proven that you have almost 400 to 500 needs for those that are already in town to stay in town and find housing, one road is you go down and take care of Wellfleet. The other road is you go 40B, but you open that up, and if you can't fill that percentage the first year, you've lost it completely. So that's kind of where I was going, Ryan, is there in itself is looking down the road is to say, okay, what are we doing and who are we actually getting this housing available to? And the need seems to me substantial in nature, that if we want to keep plumbers, electricians, oystermen, rescue squad, police and fire in Wellfleet, we need to take care of Wellfleet a majority of this situation. We're doing Lawrence Road, which will be opened up after that first year to because it's all 40B to everybody. I'm not sure how much we will even be able to fill because of income levels for those in Wellfleet. But once they're gone, and then after that first year, they're always open. So it's sort of like, in my mind, part of the discussion with looking at the site, developing the site, is also where are we trying to go with filling those units. An additional question to that is, I believe the 21 acres that we keep talking about is the size of the project or the parcel that we bought. However, when you start taking out the building setbacks and you take out the setbacks from Springbrook, 200 feet or more or less in a couple different places, I think it probably knocks down this project to about 17 acres of usable land. So when you start talking 300 buildings or units on 21 acres is one thing. When you start talking about 300 units on 17 acres, that's a sizable discount. That's a sizable downside. So I really think that in the future, when we're talking about units and we're talking about square footage and acreage, that we should probably look at basically the hard fact of what we're really looking to build on rather than the open space. And to my question with open space, and I know it's part of the plan and you're looking at it, but we are bordering the rail trail, which gives this facility the ability to bike back to Marconi in a relatively short distance to their beach. It also gives it the ability to take the rail trail in a reasonable distance to get on Counts Hollow Road and some of our ponds. But on the other side of the rail trail is the entire National Seashore. Talk about open space. So it may not be in their front yard, but the National Seashore is certainly in their backyard. So I think we ought to look at that when we're looking at open space pretty carefully. The other question, and I know I'm throwing these questions out, I don't necessarily need answers to all of them, but I'm looking to the committee to say, okay, here's some of my questions. If this project is done in stages, I certainly would like to know, let's say there's 5 stages. I'd like to know in each stage whether or not those particular properties within each stage is being taxed real estate wise, or are we just giving the developer a parcel of land worth that we're going to have invested into well over $12 to $15 million and just give it to them with no tax benefits? So these are some of the questions as planning, because economics falls under the planning board's purview as well. These are some of the questions as you go down the line here that I think not only myself, the planning board, but probably those taxpayers in the town of Wellfleet on town meeting floor that are going to vote for this would like to know, is there any tax benefits, or are we just selling it with no tax revenue? I see the buffer to the north. I noticed that it appeared, at least to me, without a visual plan in front of me to size, that a number, if not a majority, of the present cottages that are year-round, that are rented on a year-round basis, are within that setback area. Are they pre-existing? Are they going to be classified as pre-existing, non-conforming, it can stay? Or is it part of the conservation, MESA situation where they are going to be taken down? I don't know whether that's gotten that far or not, or whether or not MESA and whatever the conservation, if you've gone to conservation, has weighed in and said, no, we want them out of there, or are we going to leave them and say they can stay?
I don't think there are any year-round. There's one year-round resident there, and that's in the house.
So the other
And there are no cottages in the
buffer?
buffer. There's trailers in there that are going to be out of there.
So when I looked, I think it was the second plan where potentially with consideration was to move the store up to that northerly corner. Again, without a plan sitting in front of me that I can visually see, it appeared that was really up towards that buffer, and it appeared there were cottages above that where those cottages were.
No, those are the houses on Springbrook.
Those houses on Springbrook?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the planning board needs to see, as you proceed, and I know this was tremendously beneficial to the planning board. Excellent. I think as you proceed, that the planning board would like to have more of these meetings, number one, and I wonder if the committee, as you proceed a little bit further, and maybe to other members who have brought this up, Robert, David, is it time to not only with the Maurice's Campground Committee, is it time to potentially form maybe a subcommittee with Planning Board, Fire Department, Police Department, Conservation, Board of Health, to sort of all keep us on the same wavelength so we're not talking to one department at a time. We're getting input from those departments as you proceed, so you're not proceeding down a bad path. I know at the last meeting I attended, and I will say that I'm sorry I missed the first one or two, but the last one that was crowded, as Ryan said, a lot of us were standing room only, was well recepted. A little bit more difficult to get some information out of individuals, but it still was an excellent meeting. I think that bringing as many departments in Wellfleet into this, even though it may slow things down just a bit, with the fact that we can't do anything or even put a shovel in the ground for the next 5 years, at which point I think we still have to clean up the site, and I don't know whether you're leaving that to the developer or you're planning on doing it ahead of time. Those are some of my additional questions. I also wonder whether or not, and to Ryan's point, we have a tremendous problem with people needing housing in Wellfleet. But we also have, as Ryan stated, we have serious problems, and I mean no disrespect for anybody that's presently working for the town of Wellfleet. We have serious problems with putting out jobs to fill, to get qualified people, because once they come in, look at Wellfleet, understand what the cost is to live here, even our surrounding towns, they go the other way. So I'm wondering whether or not, as part of this overall project, that single families, they could be duplexes, they could be triplexes, just like Old County Road, those 12 units in 4 buildings on probably less than 2 acres has worked out pretty well. Whether or not the town of Wellfleet should step in, take out a bond, and own some of those units, make them available strictly to employees, fire, police, town employees, as a benefit to say, okay, we'd like to hire you, and we have the facilities to put you up as part of your wages, charge them a fee, and if at any time we part company, you're given 6 months, you're out. But I think Wellfleet has got, this is one, as a developer, as somebody that's been involved with Planning Board, probably for some people more than they'd like to see me. I've seen Wellfleet since 1972 to today. With the seashore, with the Audubon, with the wetland, we have lost almost 70% of Wellfleet that will never, ever be built on. It is a fantastic thing to have in our back pocket. But it also is, you build it and they will come. And consequently, because we've built it so well, and it is protected, it was protected well before I got here, but my father-in-law was on the planning board when the seashore came in 1959, 1960. Thank God. that we have them. However, what we have left as far as raw land goes for future development is negligible. So I think that this track, and that's one of the reasons why I stepped up at town meeting and said I think we should buy it, regardless of what we do with it, land bank it. Even as a worst case scenario, land bank it. Because we see Brewster, we see Orleans, we see Eastham having to buy acreage left and right because they don't have a seashore, so they need protection for their future. So I think it's something that we certainly should look to phase. In phases, to take a phase, could be the first phase is possibly habitat. Build a number of small, maybe 4, 5, 6. Look how fast we filled the 4 on Old County Road, Old Kings Highway. And those 4 units are going up. They're successful. They stay here once they're in it. They're plumbers, they're electricians. They're building up, they may not be building up the same equity as individuals that own their house outright, but they're building up a fair equity. So if they do sell, it comes back to the habitat, but it also comes back in the profit to them. So I think we need to look at it and say, okay, this needs to certainly be done in stages, and it certainly needs to be tried out to see, okay, can we fill 4, 5, 6 individuals if we do habitat from Wellfleet? Can we do a phase where it's got 2 duplexes, triplexes, 1 level? Can we fill those with individuals as condos and fill some of it with those individuals that live here in these large houses, lost a husband, lost a wife, the kids are gone, they want to stay in Wellfleet as a place to go for senior housing, to keep those individuals that here. So I think there's an awful lot to be looked at. And I know everybody wants to go forward on a fast track, but I really think it is going to be very rare that we ever get another one of these size projects that is that close to town water. We're lucky that Eastham is consenting to afford water, because at least we don't have to put in town water ourselves. But at some point in the future, Wellfleet is going to have a very serious problem with water on Lieutenant's Island, Indian Neck, Pleasant Point, and we're going to have to face the same problem that Eastham faced with town water. So there's some extreme expenses that are going out the door. At some point, the cinema is going to sell. It's probably on the market today, not officially, but at some point it will sell. God knows about the drive-in, but that's all commercially zoned, and that is right across the street from this project and where Eastham dumps into Wellfleet. So it is it may not be as congested as we think it is. Well, we know it's congested at this point, but 300 units in that particular area in the middle of summer, where the drive-in is letting out the theaters and the cinemas and the flea markets, that is